keyboard to the boardroom. This is the business of esports. As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner, YouGov, offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports weekly news show / post-podcast live stream. I am Paul Doalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Barada, Jeff the Juice Cohen, Lindsay the Boss Poss. For those of you who are new here, welcome. What we do is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in the industry, but the best part is we get to do it live with you guys. It makes it so much more fun. You get to ask questions, challenge us, get in our faces. We encourage you to do so. If you're a regular here, thank you. Make sure you tell your friends, your family, your colleagues, invite them to the live stream. Every Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. We love having you guys here. Our Sanity says, finally able to make a live one. Welcome. This is the best part of doing it. It's doing it live with you guys. How are you all doing this week, guys? Lindsay, how are things?
Oh, things are good. Remember when we used to have a longer intro and it used to be because when the professor was on, he would always be late. And so we made this intro so that there was a way to balance things out if anyone was late. And guess who the problem is now? It's still not me.
Now, for those of you who actually good segue, interesting segue, I was going to start this week talking about the Roblox story. However, because Roblox shares got killed today, they announced their quarterly earnings. We covered that on the Meta Business podcast, which is the reason why we're late. So everyone can tune into Meta Business and listen to that Roblox breakdown there. Great podcast. Jeff and I do it. Just go subscribe anywhere you get your podcast, Meta Business. And since Lindsay complained about it, you should go subscribe to her podcast as well, Meta Woman, on every single podcast platform. But seriously, did everyone have a good week? Everyone's doing good so far. We got lots to talk about today.
Very good. Good week. Good week.
Everyone's
I'm wearing my white hat today. You know, I switched it up a little bit.
You were supposed to change it, Jeff. We said you were going to wear the white hat on Meta Business and the black hat here.
It was too much of a fire drill, you know?
Guys, on the podcast this week, you can expect so the episode that drops this week, we had Rohan Bose, who's an associate at Technos Associates, and what they do is valuation work. So like putting a value on companies, and they have a big esports and gaming practice. Some of their clients include Roblox, which is interesting, and they have esports teams that are clients. I did ask him about the Activision-Blizzard Microsoft, what he thought of that valuation, and I asked him about the Sony Bungie deal and what he thought about that valuation. And so you guys will have to tune in this week because it was a really interesting conversation, mostly all about valuation. So all of this conversation we have on the podcast, all the talk we do about valuation. Go ahead, Jeff. What's up?
Speaking of valuation, and the reason I think of this because he's sort of like the godfather of valuation and value investing. Did you guys see that Warren Buffett bought Activision stock ahead of the acquisition?
the
What do
day
you make of
before.
this?
The
Yep.
day
He
before.
bought a lot of it too.
Wow.
It was a huge buy.
Well, he runs a lot
No,
of
I
money.
know. It's just sometimes the numbers still just
Yeah.
like stun me. I'm like, oh my
Jeff, are
god.
you suggesting something?
No. I'm not suggesting at all that it was insider trading or anything like that. I'm more suggesting. I more thought it was really interesting because it was obviously he was doing one. It's very outside of what Warren Buffett typically, invests in. Warren Buffett buys like industrial companies like railroads and stuff. Like I guess he's made a ton of money in Apple,
That's
but
the
that's like
reason why the
largely
scale of
the
the buy
only
surprised me, by the way.
fair. That's like the only tech. He's famously never really gotten deep into investing in tech. So it just felt odd to me that he would invest in a video game company. Now, to me, if I'm an Activision shareholder or someone buying the stock now, this gives me a lot of comfort because if the Microsoft deal doesn't close, you feel pretty good that Warren Buffett was buying the stock at 77 and it's currently 81. So like your downside's pretty limited if you believe Warren Buffett knows what he's talking about, which I think we all probably should believe that that's the case. So I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool. I know Bobby always goes to. I think I've read in the past he always goes to Warren Buffett's like Omaha big shareholder day. He's kind of a Warren Buffett fan, so they may even be friends. But I just thought it was interesting that Warren Buffett bought Activision. I don't know. I'm curious if you guys.
I mean, the implication is that it's a value play at $77, right?
Basically, that's what I was saying. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
I mean, I don't know if I buy that. The timing did seem a little unusual, and Buffett is good friends with Gates, like they're best friends, I think. And so
Very true. I think Buffett's got a lot better things to do than insider trade to make $100 million.
I mean, it's got to be some of the greatest timing ever in terms of an investment. You would think. I don't know what his upside was on that one trade, but I'm assuming Buffett's going to hold this like. I mean, he's going to get Microsoft stock. So I don't know. Were they previously invested in Microsoft?
I don't think he's ever owned Microsoft, but it's a cash deal, so he's going to get cash. He'll get cash.
The question is, does he believe? I mean, does anyone believe that Microsoft's a value play at this point, post this acquisition? Maybe a different conversation. But if he gets cash, I guess the deal is done. Freddie says Lindsay's killing Meta Woman. I did 3 this week, and thanks. I mean, Freddie, thank you for listening and tuning in.
Thank you.
I agree that Lindsay is killing it. All right, guys, let's talk about some news. So, by the way, like I said, if you want to hear the Roblox conversation, go tune into that episode of Meta Business. It'll drop. Meta Business episodes drop on Mondays, so Monday of next week is when you can expect to get that. Let's start with something a bit light. It's something I've alluded to on a couple of podcasts now that I have not played this new game, Lost Ark. But Lost Ark is in the news, and I thought this headline was shocking, maybe I would use the word. I was not expecting this. Where the headline here is Lost Ark passes 1.3 million concurrent, overtakes Cyberpunk 2077, Dota 2, and CSGO to become Steam's second biggest game ever based on player numbers. So it's only the 5th game ever to pass 1 million concurrents. It reached a peak of 1.325 million. So it is now officially Steam's second biggest game ever. I mean, guys, what do we make of Amazon Games, Lost Ark, Steam in all of this? I know there's probably not a ton of meat to dig into here because we just have a few numbers, but curious predictions in terms of where this goes and what you conclude from it, whether it's about the genre of like the MMO as a genre. Is it a conclusion about games in general, Steam? Like what conclusions can we draw from this, if any?
First conclusion I see is that gamers want something new, right? You have a big release and you have a lot of people that are playing it. It's whether or not they can sustain that I think that interest that's the true question here, because like we saw with New World they couldn't, right? And we see with a lot of other games, Call of Duty failing 2-3 times recently ever since the first Warzone came out. it's going to be hard, I think, too, for an MMO to really capture that interest. They have to have a really compelling story. Paul and I spoke briefly in the intro to the podcast that we recorded earlier today about community and engagement with friends. But what I see is, people that are playing other games looking for something new. Awesome that they jumped to number 2, though. Cyberpunk doesn't really strike me as all that impressive of a feat. And CS:GO, I think, is it's a name we all recognize, but it's not like on top of anything, right? It's just the OG in the room. So I just think there's a lot of interest for something new. It's an interest for an MMO also.
Does anyone think that these numbers are juiced? Don't mind the pun here, but like that it's easy now to get big launches because everyone just buys attention through streamers. Like if you go on Twitch, even now, Shroud's streaming Lost Ark, SFan Lost Ark, Grimm's Lost Ark, Fextra Life Lost Ark, right? Like there's just every, maybe 50% of the biggest streamers are all streaming Lost Ark. And clearly many of them are being paid. They all have like drops enabled, which means, they're you get in-game drops for watching them. Like, does anyone think that maybe these numbers have become artificial and not really telling or predictive of a game's success?
It's free to play, right? Or was it
Yes,
pay?
it's free to play.
Yeah, I'll buy that a little bit. That maybe it is more efficient to launch a big game, but having said that, you still need a massive marketing budget. Like we don't see this with every new game launch. I think Jimmy's probably spot on that gamers are hungry for new games, and sort of maybe this slate this fall didn't get people as excited and engaged as we had kind of thought going in. So I think I'll buy a little bit of both of your arguments there. I still do think I'm surprised that we're not as hyped up about this, because I remember distinctly when we talked about New World over the summer, there was a ton of hype and people were very excited about Amazon kind of finally having a success in games. Of course, that kind of tailed off, and I think some of us sort of foresaw that could happen. Are we now not paying enough attention to this launch because we're sort of expecting it to tail off? Because it feels to me like it being the second biggest game ever on Steam is like kind of a big deal. Like I don't know.
And it's from Amazon Games.
Yeah.
Right? Like who we've poo-pooed.
Yeah.
But arguably 2 big launches now. 2 out of 3 call it games are successes.
Yeah.
Jeff's a great question. And I'm curious what Jimmy and Lindsay, you think. Like, is Amazon, should we be paying more attention to Amazon games?
Well, I think that they've done some really clever marketing and thought behind the games to actually get people into them at first. And I do think that there is definitely a power in the free-to-play model here. That's part of it. It's so easy to just download a game that costs you nothing, whether you play it or not, and how long you play it is a different story. I guess I am unsurprised by these huge launches. I think I'm just more interested to find out what happens afterwards and to see how sticky these games are and how long they can last. So it's not that I want to undercount the launch, because having a huge launch is a big deal. I just think that's easier to accomplish right now than it might have been before. And I think that the metric that we look for now is maybe not how well the launch did, although the launch does have to reach a certain threshold of doing well, but what the game looks like 1 to 3 months out and what those player counts are like. And if they can maintain even 50% of the player counts, then it's a smash success. But I think the launch metric is not one that I would necessarily use right now to measure how successful a game is forever.
Lindsay, it's funny you say that, right? Because if we look traditionally, if you look at movies or games traditionally, right, like $60 box games, you could look at launch weekend, and people had models where you could literally know almost down to the dollar how much the game or the movie is going to do in terms of sales based purely on the launch weekend, right? What I'm hearing from you and sort of the I think I agree with it is, well, this doesn't work. These models don't work anymore. And so what is the predictor of success then, right? If it's not launch weekend, if it's not launch day, if we're saying, so that's my first question. What is the predictor of success? And second of all, what broke that? Is it the fact that it's free to play? Is it the fact that we can juice launch numbers with a bunch of streamers? Like, what has broken that in your mind? And what is the new predictor now? I don't know if anyone has thoughts.
Yeah, I'll go really quick. I think the thing that's broken it is that it's become significantly easier to market games through Twitch and through streaming platforms. So you can make a really splashy launch, and especially with a company like Amazon backing it, you can spend all the money you need to spend and get the launch numbers that you need to reach fairly easily and simply. It's one of the good and bad things about social media, quite frankly. You can sort of buy attention really quickly and have a lot of eyeballs on it. And then you combine that with making it free to play and lower that barrier to entry, and your numbers look stellar. So I think that there's just sort of a recipe for success there that's easily replicable, particularly if you're a huge studio with lots of money behind it. I do think that shifting away from opening weekend and kind of those box office numbers is a pretty seismic shift in how you actually do data analytics on these games. But I think that for me, one of the metrics I'd like to propose is percent retention after launch. So how many people do you retain as a percentage of your launch numbers, maybe 1 and 6 months and 1 year out? And if you can retain, I don't know, maybe say 25% 1 year out of the second best selling game of all time or second most downloaded game of all time on Steam, then you're doing pretty good. So I think we have to look at percent retention from these massive launch weekends. Like, how sticky can you actually make your game?
Well, you're absolutely the retention's the big key. I mean, the difference now between what it was 10 years ago when it was a box copy is obviously the game that you're playing 6 months from now is not going to be the same game you're playing today. And if it is, you're going to lose because you're not going to be able to retain people. If you think about what games like Apex and Warzone and all these games do with content, I mean, you're getting new maps, new guns, new story, pretty much weekly, monthly, quarterly for years. So the game changes over time. So it is all about kind of keeping people around and retention. I'm not entirely like, I guess I would push back a little bit on the streamer piece. Like, I don't know if it's that much easier to market a game now than it used to be. And the only reason I say that is because it used to be you could just go to GameStop and basically if you were EA, you would get the best shelf space and you would get into that channel. You could stuff that channel with box copies. And when a gamer walked into GameStop, there was 15 games they saw. And if you were one of the ones that were on that wall, that's it. You were the one that was getting bought. Does maybe streaming, paying streamers have the same effect where you have a Twitch wall and it's whatever Ninja's playing, whatever Stroud's playing? Maybe it's the same thing, but I'm not so sure. I think we've seen a lot more long tail games becoming popular in the last couple of years than we actually ever have before. So I guess I would push back a little bit. I don't know.
Jimmy, any thoughts on this? Or let me just read some comments and then we'll get your thoughts and wrap it up. SEO says, yo, how are you guys doing? SEO,
Hey.
Great to have you here. Welcome. Stuart says, hey, all been a few weeks. Hope you're all doing well. Stuart, we missed you. Welcome back.
Stuart.
Kevin says, remember Hyperscape? I can't find the numbers, but at the time of release, didn't they have a lot of concurrent players week 1? It's now shut down. Yeah, I mean, that was a super hyped launch. A lot of people playing. I played it. A lot of people thought that was going to be the next big battle royale. Like, you're right. It did not retain players. Reputable Hype says games are more a community now. They used to be in more of a silo. I think of it like a coffee shop. 1 year is just the honeymoon period. If they can make 3 years, that's the data that matters. I mean, true. The problem is, like, if you're looking at this from an analyst standpoint or trying to gauge, future success of a business, you don't have the luxury of like, well, let me get 3 years of data and then see how, like how can we make judgment from the first 2 or 3 days of launch or the first week of launch and extrapolate out to some reasonable conclusion, right? I guess is my question. So with limited data, draw some relatively accurate conclusions. I'm curious, anyone in chat, if they have ideas or what those metrics might be, what the markers of success they think exist that we should be paying attention to instead of just how many players on day one. Beast Mode said Hyperscape was trash. I mean, I personally don't agree. I thought it was a good game. I think the mechanics got maybe just a little boring quickly. Freddie says traditional marketing. Freddie, what are you referring to specifically? I think traditional marketing is what Jeff was talking about, where it's like shelf space at GameStop. But I feel like traditional marketing now is literally just getting every streamer to play your game. I mean, that feels almost like traditional at this point. Jimmy, do you have thoughts before we?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of really good points, you guys, and it's hard to disagree because I think it's hard to kind of pinpoint. Paul had mentioned, is it the free to play? What exactly is it that's kind of ruining these launches, or what's the true indicator of success? And these were already kind of covered, but the things that always come to my mind when I think of a new release, besides Cyberpunk and that kind of disaster, which is unrelated, I think, to marketing and more a result of the underlying game, is first, when you think of Apex, which to my mind was one of the first ones, and I know we were kind of talked on all these points, but was one of those first ones, right, to really do this affiliate marketing through streamers. That didn't work out well for them, right? It worked out great for the start, and then they had a fast drop off. And then I remember on the show, on this show, we were poo-pooing Apex because they had some 500K tournament after Fortnite announced like a $20 million prize pool or whatever it was. And you're just like,
that was lame.
It wasn't lame. It was lame. And that's what I'm saying, right? Like they paid for all this marketing and then they didn't follow up with anything substantive. So Apex is the first one that comes to mind because it's a great game. Now, 3 years later, it's still getting recognition, but we seriously went through other FPS cycles of other games taking the spotlight before Apex came back into contention. So that was one. And then two was Valorant, which did a similar exclusivity thing, drops in the beta. And then we also saw a big dip after that because it was kind of juiced in a way, right? It was like this false hype. And then once it was open, it was kind of, that was it. So, I think the combination or the learnings from that, a lot of it points to free to play, Paul. Like it's a really compelling argument that because these things aren't on a shelf, like Jeff mentioned, and Lindsay, I know you spoke to this too, but because these things are free to play, we can just cycle through any game we want at any moment and try them out and spend that time. There's no investment other than time in having, some kind of console or system that can handle it. So that makes the life cycle of these a lot shorter and the attention span that much harder to get.
But you see the business challenge here, right? And Jimmy, you allude to it, which is if you had a movie and you released a movie opening weekend, right? And you knew if the movie did, pick a number, 50 million domestically in your opening weekend, you knew it would do another 100 million internationally, and it would finish, $200 million movie or something like that, right? There was some model there. And you knew, therefore, you could spend X dollars on marketing based on how that opening weekend went.
Sure.
The problem is, like with Apex, the perfect example, right? Based on opening weekend, you think, oh my God, we should be spending zillions of dollars on marketing. Yeah. And then you get this massive drop off, right? Like it's hard to plan as a business around things where you can't have any models or any kind of predictors of success. Let me just read the. Sorry.
I was going to say that I think that was part of Lindsay's point too, right? Was with the retention. That was a big part of her argument, and also myself in launching apps and other companies. Whenever we used influencer marketing, Nadeshot, big Benji Fishy, big recognizable names, you saw a huge spike in users and engagement for the period of that marketing campaign. And then you saw almost no engagement afterwards. And that was maybe a result of using them at the wrong time. You didn't have your own native community or thing to cultivate those new users to continue to entertain them and keep them. You just had a bunch of random people in a new space wondering, what do I do? Where do I go? And then leaving when that influencer was gone. So I don't know. I don't think the opening is as influential as a sustained, what was it that it wasn't beast mode? Was it our sanity? I'm trying to look through the chat on that 3 year, reputable hype on that 3 year kind of time scale.
Problem with looking at things 3 years, it's like there's a massive amount of survivorship bias where it's like very few games are popular after even 6 months. So like if you're only looking once it's been 3 years, like congrats, you already have a hit. Like there's not much at that point to really be looking at.
Arsanity says, I feel that games now are a bit stale. I wonder what devs can do to pull players from the longer standing games, League of Legends, WoW, etc. I mean, I'd love the chat's opinion on this, but curious what you guys think. Well, what can devs do to pull players from those longer standing games? Because I suspect Lost Ark is not pulling players from WoW. I don't think so.
I mean, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? If
Probably
I
more
knew
than
how
probably
to
more
do
than a
that,
billion.
I would do it. No, it's a billion. Beef.
Yeah, probably more than a billion.
Oh yeah. If I knew how to do that, I would do that. There's a weird combination of network effects there that I'm sure there's tons of people out there exploring right now as we speak, trying to figure out what that magic formula between good gameplay, good storyline, popular mechanics, getting all your friends on it. Is it free to play? Is it not? Like if we knew that, we would have games out there that people were playing instead of WoW. So I don't know what it's going to take.
I think I have somewhat of an answer, and I agree with you, Lindsay, that's like the billion-dollar question. And I think the answer was actually shown to us earlier last year, or was it the year before, when WoW came out with WoW Classic. And that is, you need to just rip off or reuse an old nostalgic title, repackage it. Maybe I'm a new development firm and I rip off someone else's IP and gaming characters and I just repackage it as something new. Because nostalgia essentially is your memory minus that anxiety and anything negative from that time. It's just good vibes, right? So
MCU it. Yeah.
Brody says that helps launch game Amazon style, talking about traditional marketing. Yeah. Beast Mode says, "Our sanity, you right." So there you go. Our sanity agrees. Beast Mode agrees. Yeah, but the free to play make a bunch of money just from cosmetics. This is true. But it's also why it's difficult to predict long term success, because they need to stay a customer long term to actually monetize them. Our sanity says, "I love how Jimmy's talking about switching costs with all these free to play games. Great insight. All the players from the longer standing games have too much at stake in those older games." True. I mean, yes, right? Like if you've dumped 2,000 hours into WoW, the switching costs are definitely higher. But I feel like gamers like new also, right? There is some amount of friction, but it's not like, do you guys really believe WoW's going to be around for the next 20 years in its current form? There's going to be some,
I want to see what WoW Mobile looks like, honestly. That could be exciting.
I don't even want to go there. Adam says, hello, everyone. Adam, welcome. Beastone says, I feel like the older games that come out with new games like Halo, we all remember the good times, so why would we not buy it? Yeah, Halo definitely played on people's nostalgia big time, even for the current release. Definitely. Chris says, Chris, welcome, by the way. We missed you. Mock Fortnite all you want. The amount of content they throw out is why it still has a player base. I mean, it's a good point. But let me just stretch Chris's point here. Is it really quantity over quality, right? Do we not care? Is one of the metrics that maybe we should be looking at is just total quantity of content?
I'm the wrong person
in the
to
first
ask.
30 days?
I think Fortnite has both. I mean, all these activations and crossover events, they're kind of reliant on it now, which is the sad thing because everyone's looking for that next crossover. But I love the Fortnite content. I'm a big fan. Not to mention, and back to the free-to-play thing, so many of the in-game cosmetics, not the ones that I paid for, but also the ones that I earned, that's kind of a status thing, right? It's like having a Bored Ape to have that OG, skin, right, from one of the earlier seasons or from one of the harder campaigns. So it's funny, the game alone isn't enough, right? You have to gamify it through a battle pass. If you don't have a battle pass with in-game rewards that require you to log in every day or every week to complete those challenges, you're already missing the boat. And then on top of that, there has to be some kind of value there, right? Because wasn't it Ubisoft that we analyzed a month or so ago, and it was that skin that you had to spend like 20 hours to get on that gun, and then people were reselling it for like $100. So what was really the value to it? In Fortnite, you can't really sell, because you don't own those, but it's all part of the equation. It's just hard to really pin it down on one thing.
Stewart says it's in the mixture of the type of game and the delivery. E.g., would COD be better free to play? Better? I mean, I don't know if it would be a better game, right? The game's going to be the same. Would it have more staying power, you think? Would the player base be larger and more steady over time? I mean, it's a great question. Do you guys have thoughts on that?
Well, they've sort of already done that, right, with Warzone, and I think it clearly did work. And I do think eventually COD will probably go free to play.
It's going to go into Game
or
Pass.
at least at the very least into Game
Game
Pass,
Pass,
which
yeah.
you know effectively is free to play if you already have Game Pass, which a lot of people do.
Arsanity says, I agree that I do try all these new games, but I just keep coming back. It's the community I'm there for. Arsanity, WoW is also just a great MMO. Like a part of the problem is the quality of the game everyone ignores in the business conversation as if they're all interchangeable, right? And the reality is it is just better, right? The game, it's the product itself is better, and that's hard for business people to quantify or to account for. And I think it largely gets ignored. Matthew says Fortnite have basically been the same game since its release. That's why they have all the activations and crossover events. I mean, it definitely doesn't look like the same game, at least when you watch it. I don't play it. Stuart says quantity helps identify what works. True. I mean, like anything in content, if you look at just like the kind of content we create, I'm a big believer in quantity because you don't necessarily know what will resonate with an audience. And so, maybe it applies directly to the game world also. Matt says, it's like Jimmy said, they basically need activations to survive at this point. Beast Mode says, there's also that one person in the group that never wants to take that step into new game. So I never want to buy a game unless my whole group wants
to. That's so true, though. That's really, really true. We talked about that earlier, Paul, right? About MMOs in general, right? If you have that one person that's an FPS guy, I wanted to play Rogue Squadrons, that Star Wars one that came out last year with a jet fighter. I was the only one in my group that wanted to play it. So like naturally, I have it sitting in my library with last login time, from a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting problem. I wonder, like, not a lot of people have addressed that, like the ability to group buy or things like that, like where there's maybe some way to encourage groups to go in together, like you actually get more benefits in game. It's like
this is literally a guild box. You just invented guilds. Like, isn't that kind of the whole pitch on guilds?
Well, guilds have if we're talking about the play to earn guilds, you mean? I mean, that's because play to earn introduces some kind of barrier, right?
Yeah. It creates a problem and then the guild solves it. But by being in the guild, you get sort of access to what games are going to be popular early, and you sort of get early. You're adopting it early by definition. You get the goods, and then they go up in value, and then you make money like Jimmy does, speculating on these things.
What I think what the interesting thought is, like, why don't more game developers encourage multiple people, like groups, to join and then provide them some in-game reward should they?
Like as a group.
How do you peer pressure other? Like, how do you create peer pressure within your group for them to download a game or try a game?
That's pretty good, actually, because like Fortnite has these skins, right? And then they did a thing where you can have four, the squad is 4, and you can get this one skin in 4 different color schemes or 4 different variants. And so you want your group to have, like, I think they're doing a Ninja Turtles collab, so you can each be one of the Ninja Turtles, and they've done it with others. That's along the lines, but not as well thought out as what you just what you just raised, right? Which is like,
which one's your favorite turtle? Go around.
I go Raphael.
I'm Leonardo.
Oh my God, Raphael's my favorite.
You guys are all out to lunch. Donatello was the best.
I knew you were going to say Donatello.
He has a stick, but okay.
I mean,
the guy
Leonardo
with the wooden
was
stick, the non-lethal weapon.
Let's be honest. That's the next question.
He was the smart one. Come on.
He was
Leonardo
the
had the massive swords. Come on. Let's be real.
It's a little too sure of himself.
A little bit of an asshole, but whatever.
Feels like it fits. Kevin says, do you think RuneScape would still be around? I mean, RuneScape is still around. I mean,
this was in reference to your whole, are people still going to be playing WoW in 20 years?
Oh. Yeah,
I mean,
so he said, yeah.
well, let me just push it. Will RuneScape still be around 20 years from now?
I don't know. It's been around for 21 already. It's basically pumped up the Venezuelan economy for the last 15.
At some point, you actually run out of hardware able to play these like super old games. Like emulating super old games actually becomes difficult. Chris says the fact that Reaper, which is a knockoff of John Wick, has more wow factor than the John Wick skin to Fortnite players supports Jimmy's point entirely.
Hey, that's high praise, Chris. Thank you. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the data and the facts.
I'm tempted to not like. I hate agreeing with this though because I don't want to support knockoffs of anything, right? But clearly they knew what they were doing. Matt says, "I mean, has not okay." Chris says, "Chat on fire tonight." I agree. I love this. JC says, "Quantity equals experimentation." No question, right? But it's also like we could be somewhat critical when the strategy is we just throw everything at the wall and hope something sticks.
Quantity
but it
also equals selling out, though, right?
Well, in what way?
Once you have that winning formula, you just pump them out as much as you can. You just cash in or cash out.
Well, they're not like
I don't even know what we're
like
debating about
everything
anymore.
at the wall. They're partnering with like a bunch of different luxury brands. Who doesn't want that? And like huge IPs, and it's not like
you're right. We're not saying the quality is low, right? But when we talk about quantity over quality, it's most definitely experimentation. The question is, or at least my view is, there's nothing wrong with experimentation, right? That's where innovation comes from. This is where it's okay if experimentation is the strategy, as long as you're putting a lot out there and you're willing to fail on some things and you're willing to take risks. Chris says gamers are lemmings. Got it. I mean, to some extent, I mean, it is a very opinionated audience, and you know this, Chris, but I think they're homogeneous in a certain way. Our Sanity says, in regards to esports, the pro competitive scene of games, it sucks to say that all these new games will never build the scene or grow viewership because of the game hopping. That's an interesting point. Interesting thought. Does esports get tougher because the barrier to get and change games gets lower and lower? I'll start with my viewpoint. I'm curious what you guys think. I think esports are fine regardless of game hopping. In the same way, I could play basketball today and go play football tomorrow. I'm still going to watch the sports I want to watch, even if it's sports A, I don't play, and B, I don't necessarily play regularly, right? Like I don't play hockey regularly, but I still watch hockey. And so to me, these things are not as correlated as I think people expect them to be. Lindsay, you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with that because I think that while I haven't heard of many people playing Valorant, the esports and the competitive scene there has been growing since Valorant was launched. So I think that's sort of a prime example. I also don't necessarily think that every game that's played, like I think it's okay to build a game that's mostly for esports and for a competitive scene. And I do think that that's Valorant's goal. I mean, obviously Riot has other massively successful IP. They don't need all their players to be playing Valorant, but it helps to have a healthy competitive scene, and they've really built that out and invested in that with that game. So
yeah, I just don't think player base and fan base necessarily they may be correlated, but there's not causation there, right? Like just because you have a huge player base doesn't necessarily mean your esports scene is going to be successful. We saw this with Overwatch. We saw it with Call of Duty to a certain extent. They're not directly tied. Adam says, Paul and a Donatello fan is the least shocking thing of 2022.
It's true.
I don't know what this says about me. No, I want to take this as a compliment, Adam, I think. Stuart says, yes, Donatello. Stuart, I'm with you. You and me. Kevin says, what's that?
Splinter. You're Splinter. You're not even a turtle. You're just like the wise rat.
Nah, he's Donatello.
Kevin says, Fortnite hit a certain addicting feeling that was unmatched to me since COD Modern Warfare 2. Sometimes when it comes down to it, it just needs to be a great game to be successful. I mean, Kevin, like I said, it's the most overlooked factor in all of these business discussions. Like we end up going down these rabbit holes of trying to analyze every which way, but we forget that the product matters here. Beast Mode says, I think the reason people are so stuck on Fortnite because right when it came out, it was something new, something we've never seen before. True. But we still see, right? Like novelty is maybe an interesting, like what you're saying is novelty, Beast Mode, right? And
Right.
that if are we saying this is a potential metric for success to look at, like how novel is the game, and is that a predictor of success? Is an interesting thought.
I don't know
Lindsay,
if
you
that
don't seem
works though,
sure.
because to Jimmy's argument, how you make really successful IP is also nostalgia. There's a lot of different things
True.
that can make a game successful. I think Fortnite used its novelty at a time when it was really successful to do so. I don't know that another game, if you introduce completely new gameplay and game style, that it would work in the same way that the Battle Royale format did.
But now Fortnite's leveraging other IPs nostalgia, right? Like Star Wars, and I mean, some of these are relatively new titles like Stranger Things, but it's still that memory of something not so long ago, right? I just think they're so clever. I know we don't really care for Epic around here, but you can't knock Fortnite. That's my argument. I'm sticking to it.
I'm sticking to it. Arsanity says, at Kevin, there's going to be those one-hit wonders every now and again. We just have to wait. This is true. I don't mind spending money on Fortnite to look good in game. I mean, the entire free-to-play industry depends on this feeling.
It's about flexing.
Yeah. Chris says, at Beast Mode, will you buy that skin at 100% markup if it was an NFT? Not a crypto bro, just curious. Beast Mode, I'm curious. Would you buy the skin at 100% markup if it was an NFT? That's an interesting question. And something we explore often on the Meta Business podcast, which you should all subscribe to.
If I want to take that question too, because to Chris, you know, as someone that has tons of skins and has spent so much money on so many games to look good, I would love the ability to rock that skin or to look like that avatar in other games or in other metaverse related environments. I think I would hope that eventually that skin that I do have in Fortnite I can use somewhere else. So that's my hope for one day. But I see Beast Mode responded to him too.
Yeah, he says, yeah, I would. Depends on the skin. It's interesting because there's a whole other rabbit hole here, guys, of like price elasticity of cosmetics and things like that, right? Like how price sensitive are consumers when it comes to these in-game cosmetics, and if you can create demand. My feeling, at least, and it's obviously related to this question here, is people will pay. People will pay. Like I don't think there's necessarily. I don't think we've seen the high end yet of skin prices. Let's put it that way. Does anyone think we've capped out there?
No,
Jeff,
I mean, oh, go for it, Jeff. No.
Well, Jimmy, this is more your area of expertise, but I don't see why not. I mean, like when you're talking about super high end luxury, like I don't even know what the most expensive skin that's ever been sold, but I imagine we're not even close to scratching the surface, particularly when you start introducing NFTs and crypto, and you just have a lot of people in these ecosystems that have made ungodly amounts of money based on being early, and they see value in these digital items. So like, you know, people are willing to buy $4 million pictures of an ape. Like, you can't tell me they're also not going to be willing to spend $1 million on something cool in a game. Like, it just, yeah.
The thing with these skins is that there's no scarcity. Anyone can buy the skin, right? So I think if you create a false scarcity of there's only 1,000 of people that will have these, then Paul, your argument is clear. And I wonder why games haven't done that yet. Where like, oh, I could be one of 10,000 people that have that helmet or that skin.
CS:GO does do that. CS:GO, right? Like there are limits to, you know, the percentage that a certain skin drops or things like that. So people know there's only X number of these, you know, this particular skin out there of this quality. I want to move on, guys, because we do have stories related to NFTs and crypto, and we have stories related to more gaming IP. So like a lot of tie-ins to this whole conversation. Reputable Hype says it's so hard to gauge games early because it's like projecting a long-term relationship out of one date. What are the indicators of a good first date? Reputable, Hype, I love the analogy. It's spot on. But like I said, traditionally we were able to do that, right? The projections were possible because the distribution of buying sort of, I guess, followed some standardized curve. The struggle and the crux of this whole conversation has been what now, and you're right. It's the indicators of a good first date are not necessarily conclusive. You may have an inkling, but they're not necessarily conclusive. Lindsay, you were going to say something. Sorry.
No, I was just complimenting that analogy. It was perfect. Yeah.
Chris feels like reputable hype is the Tinder swindler.
Ooh, Jeff and I have really strong feelings about that guy.
Did you see? Apparently, he's on Cameo now. $200 for a post.
Oh my god. Chris says opening up an NFT thrift shop with Jimmy in 10 years.
5.
The fire sale. I can't wait. All right, guys, let's move on. We spent so much time about movies and IP for games and things like that, and novelty and let's talk about Lord of the Rings in the context of gaming, because there was this story from Variety, which I don't think got much attention, but the headline here is Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit film and gaming rights up for sale. So an array of movie, merchandising, gaming, and live event rights to Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and other titles from Tolkien are coming up for auction now that Saul Zentsko has decided to sell its Tolkien holdings. They hired an investment bank to handle the sale process. It says the Tolkien properties are projected to fetch at least $2 billion, based on recent high valuations for top-tier IP and content producers. It says the timing of the sale is not accidental. Amazon's set to premiere its long-awaited mega-budgeted TV series rendition of The Lord of the Rings. And Amazon supposedly is at the top of the list of prime candidates to pursue the additional rights now held by Zantz and Co. The holdings encompass rights to exploit Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit properties in film, video games, merchandising, live events, and theme parks. It also includes limited matching rights should the Tolkien estate decide to make movies or other content based on 2 compilations of Tolkien writings that were published after his death. So, interesting story here about Lord of the Rings IP rights around gaming, and also movie, but gaming interest, like more relevant to this conversation. First of all, what do you guys think of the potential buyer in Amazon? Second of all, what do we think of the $2 billion price tag? Jeff?
I think I think Amazon makes sense because they're making the game
TV show
and the TV show. Are they doing a game also? Yeah, so they make total sense to buy the IP.
I don't think there's any.
They're not doing a game?
Mm-mm.
Okay, they're doing the TV show, so it makes sense for them to acquire it. You know, they've been active in buying media properties. I think they bought MGM as well. In terms of the price tag, it seems low, honestly. I mean, The Lord of the Rings is a massive IP. If Star Wars was worth $7 billion,
4 billion. Star Wars 4 billion.
You know, is it half of a Star Wars? To me, that feels a little light. The comparison that I make actually is to Destiny, right? If Destiny and Bungie just got bought for 3.8 billion, feels like Lord of the Rings should be worth a lot more than 2. Now, obviously, I think this is just the IP, right? It's not like a company.
Correct.
So you're not with Bungie. Obviously, they were buying the developers and the team. So the comparison's not perfect, but Lord of the Rings is a tier 1 IP. So 2 billion seems kind of low.
It's Lord of the Rings, guys. If this was just for the gaming rights, don't you think that'd be 2 billion alone?
Yeah, it seems low. It seems really low. I love the comparison to Bungie. They weren't just paying for the team; they were begging the team not to leave after.
That's true.
So let's not forget
1.2 billion to
please stay. It seems way too. It just seems so low, right? I get that it's just IP. That's a good distinction. But you're talking about 6 of the most influential movies over the last 20 years, right? A handful of video games that were great. I don't even want to question myself. I wish I pulled this up sooner, but I thought they had a game of the year in the last 6 years. But
but keep in mind, these are rights to use in future, right?
Like, I understand that, but I'm highlighting the potential. I'm highlighting the strength of the market, how strongly the fans resonated with the IP when it was successfully executed, and that potential for what you could do in the future. 2 billion just seems kind of low. I don't think it's like a $10 billion play, but with everything in gaming going for so much more than we would ever dream, it seems low.
Here's my question for chat. Okay, rank the following 4 IP in order from most valuable to least valuable. Okay, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Marvel, Destiny.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
Ooh, Harry Potter.
Oh, throw Harry Potter in the mix. I like it. 5.
Oh,
From
okay.
most valuable to least valuable.
Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead,
First?
Jeff.
Can I first?
Yeah.
Marvel, Harry Potter, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Destiny.
I'm sorry, is Destiny your most or your least?
That was obvious. That was
Most
from
valuable to least valuable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You put Harry Potter above Star Wars?
I did.
Yep.
I like Harry Potter a lot.
Yeah.
I got a Star Wars tattoo, and I agree with that.
Okay, this is my personal ranking.
Most valuable to least valuable, not which one we like best.
I know. No.
Well, Tom thinks I'm right, and Tom worked at Netflix.
Chris, I think, agrees with you here. He says overpriced Lord of the Rings ships has sailed. Today's kids are growing up on too many other fantasy IPs that have replaced the uniqueness of Tolkien's work, unfortunately. Chris, I don't agree. I really don't.
Agree at all.
I usually agree with you on almost everything, but I just don't agree on this.
God, can you imagine one good cartoon in this world? Like, every kid would love that.
I agree. And I think the show, Amazon's show, is going to introduce it to a new generation, a new audience, right? Fundamentally. Chillberry says 2 billion. Microsoft has entered the chat. I mean, do we think Microsoft maybe buys it? Or is it Amazon or someone else? I mean,
Microsoft doesn't have the you need a media arm, right? Microsoft doesn't do media.
Well, they have Activision-Blizzard now, which can do games, could arguably do TV, right?
Yeah, but they don't have
Probably.
like a streaming service they're trying to build or like a subscription.
True.
Like, the only buyers for this realistically are Disney, Netflix, Amazon, and maybe Apple. That's
Sony.
it. There's
True.
no one else on earth that would buy it.
Sony, potentially.
Sony.
That's a good point.
Sony's good.
No one
Not
else
a
on earth.
buying spree.
All right, fine.
No one else.
I said there's no one else on earth.
Tom says Jeff is right. I mean, I don't know if Jeff's
Let's
right.
just
I
put that
wouldn't
every
put
5 minutes. Let's just keep it going. Go follow me
Antonio.
on
Okay,
Twitter.
hold on. Antonio's is interesting. Antonio says Star Wars. So he flipped Star Wars. He definitely agrees Star Wars is more valuable. Star Wars, Marvel, Lord of the Rings, Destiny. Curious where you stick Harry Potter in there. But in fairness, I did start with only 4. Adam says 2 billion is super low for Lord of the Rings. I would love a Lord of the Rings MMO. Also, Marvel, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and then Destiny. I mean, Jeff, this is putting Harry Potter way lower. It seems everyone agrees Destiny's the bottom of the pile so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. undoubtedly.
Everyone also agrees that Marvel and Star Wars are kind of neck and neck. I just can't believe that Harry Potter is so low on some of these listings because Harry
Marvel
Potter
is
Yeah.
way.
But,
I think
I
Marvel's
think
number one
you're all-
because there's so much future. Like there's
Yeah,
so many
no.
characters in Marvel.
Okay,
Are
but
you
what
kidding
about
me?
in gaming? Because I don't feel like they've had a lot
Yeah.
of success.
I'm not talking about
That's-
games. I'm not talking specific. To
well, that's what we're talking about.
We're
Is the
talking total.
application of
Oh,
the
like
IP in
future.
gaming.
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
I thought we were just
That
talking about
makes
the
more sense.
IP. Like if you owned it, how much value could you squeeze out of it? Or
Well,
Gaming
the
would be
ability
a
to
part
make
of it.
games, yeah,
Well-
is part of it.
well, this is a plug for Meta Business. You should, if you haven't listened to Meta Business, the episode hasn't actually come out yet, but Monday next week you should listen because we did a whole deep dive into Disney and their gaming strategy, and we did
Nice.
talk a lot about Marvel and stuff like that, and who they should buy to get into gaming.
On that
From
same
Florida.
note, by the way, as someone that recently went to Disneyland and Disney who owns Marvel and Star Wars, I can say that Star Wars Land is way cooler than Marvel over at California Adventure, like a million times better. So for
Theme
whatever that's
parks
worth.
Were in these rights, interestingly enough. Freddie says Star Wars, Marvel, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. I'm amazed that everyone thinks Lord of the Rings is not that valuable. Like I'm
I really
blown
feel like
away.
these
I'm not saying it's
four
not
are,
valuable, but what has been when was the last Lord of the Rings movie or anything that made money?
These movies
The
were
Hobbit
like some of the
trilogy,
top
dude. The Hobbit.
grossing ever, like of all
Yeah.
time, right? Like
They were incredible.
No one's saying it's not valuable. The point is when you're comparing it to Star Wars and Marvel. I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe literally prints multi-billion-dollar movies. Like the worst one, like Mr. Strange or whatever his name, Doctor Strange, was like $1.5 billion movie. Like that's almost as big as like most of the Lord of the Rings.
here's what you're talking about is I think Disney has done a better job than anyone of exploiting the IP, Marvel IP, right? And I think that's never been done fully with Lord of the Rings, right? There were some sort of landmark movies that were made, but if you look at the amount of characters, places, events, universes that the Tolkien universe holds, the potential for movies and games, theme parks, like no one has exploited it. And I think this is where I think everyone's underestimating the value of that IP because we haven't seen it yet. But the depth is, I think it's way deeper than Marvel.
Really?
I would
Marvel's
argue
got, like hundreds
maybe
of
not.
superheroes. You can do origin stories.
True,
anything.
true. But I would put it on the level of a Marvel. Let's put it that way. I would say maybe deeper than a Star Wars.
I thought
Probably
it was
deeper
you
than a
bring
Star
the
Wars.
ring, you throw it in the thing, the fire. So I never saw half the Lord of the Rings, so maybe
He
that's
invented a whole language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff,
I didn't
just
know that.
so you know, like
How
for
useful is that?
numbers-
How am I going to watch it if it's a different language?
How useful is
Oh my God.
That's a negative.
For numbers' sakes, from what I like from a quick Google, it looks like there's been 27 Marvel films, and they've each grossed close to $1 billion. The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings have also grossed close to $1 billion on each film, if not over.
So you're saying I'm right?
Well, no,
Well,
what
she's
she's
One
saying
is
is
27 billion and one is 2 billion. Like, what is
No.
bigger?
saying pound for pound, they're swinging about the same. I think is what
yeah,
you're saying.
one just hasn't been as
Pound for
And I-
pound.
and I
How can
hate
you say
giving-
pound for pound. That's a ridiculous thing to say. It's
Well, I
not
hate giving
pound
you
for pound
credit,
because
Jeff.
there's only
I hate giving you credit, but I'm looking at top box office, like lifetime gross, and Marvel properties, including Avengers and Spider-Man, are holding 4 of the top 10 spots. Star Wars is only holding 1. Lord of the Rings isn't up there. So I do hate giving them credit, but I wanted to throw
I
that
don't
out
in the
there.
metaverse future, Lord of the Rings would be the IP I would want way before I'd want anything from Marvel. I'm just saying. Let me just read these comments, guys, because we're falling way
chat
behind.
is
Sandy says,
I know. God.
Horror movies. It's great.
Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Marvel, Destiny, Star Wars. Our sanity, is this most valuable to least valuable? Did you put Star Wars last
You're crazy.
after
Uninstall.
Destiny?
Uninstall.
Unless he's only talking about gaming,
I love
guess.
the
I
hype.
want to know. I want to know why, and if you're specific to gaming, because if you're specific to gaming, I could maybe get on board with this, right? Like I could maybe agree with this ranking, and that's an interesting twist if we made it specific to gaming. Chris says Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, whatever Netflix makes, your boomer is showing.
Chris,
How
your
many
lack of
kids-
creativity is showing.
As if Chris is not also a boomer. Come on. How many kids today and over the past 10 years are reading The Hobbit? I think more than you think. I think.
A lot.
Chris is right.
Our sanity says, I think with
How
the
many
new
are
show,
reading?
Chris, it brings the next generation into the Lord of the Rings universe. I totally agree with that. 100%.
Hope so.
Beast mode, in the same way Netflix brought F1 to the masses. Like, I think the new show, Lord of the Rings show, is going to bring.
All
Lord
it
of the
takes
Rings
is
to
a
the
new
masses.
IP, or all it takes is a new application of that IP to update it, right? Like the new Star Wars movies that brought, and then the remakes for, or the FX kind of design ones from the 90s,
which were horrible, but you know,
which were all of it, but at least we got the Mandalorian, so I'm okay.
Beastnote said you would be surprised on how many kids read Hobbit. This is true. Chris says good call. Our sanity. There you go. Some agreement. Tom says Warner Brothers could be on the list of interested parties. This is true.
Hey,
Although they've said they've got out of the games business. So I feel like that would be a big, like, they'd be holding on to rights they're not going to use. Chris says, P.S. This is the best show yet. Everyone's arguing.
And none of it's about gaming.
Our sanity says I have
Or
not enjoyed
esports.
a single Star Wars game so far. I haven't seen any Marvel games do well either, though. Marvel
This
games definitely
This
Sorry, go
totally
ahead, Lindsay.
affected my thoughts when I was doing the rankings, by the way. It wasn't like
The
in
Star
my
Wars
mind, I
games?
wasn't thinking about what IP would be best to kind of move forward with. I was thinking about like what's already out there, sort of.
Yeah.
Oh, my existing favorite games are like largely Star Wars related video games. I mean, you can even make
Star
an
Wars
argument
video
for
games
Lego
have
Star
done
Wars.
well
They've been
historically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Marvel
Reputable
hasn't.
Hype says
That's what I was thinking.
all
Marvel
the
hasn't,
world
yeah.
needs is Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Ring NFTs, and it's back in the zeitgeist. I agree. We'll have people speaking Elvish in Discord servers. Adam says, I personally love Harry Potter more than Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, but I think it's not as valuable as the other two as total IPs. I'm just saying, in terms of depth, it's not there. You don't have the same scope of universe as you do. And I would argue Star Wars has a smaller universe in some ways than even a Lord of the Rings or a Marvel. As much of there is a lot of like extended universe stuff with Star Wars that's no longer considered canon or like whatever they call
That's
it.
the argument, though, right? It's because they decanonized, if that's a word,
Yeah.
the existing environment or history.
Antonio says Harry Potter after Marvel. I think everyone.
I think
agrees
we all
with
agree
that.
with that. Yeah.
Beastman says Lego, Marvel, and Star Wars were the best games I've ever played when I was younger. Yeah, I mean, I think there were some good games in those. I mean, Marvel has not really had a hit game, I don't think.
Yeah, because
I
I heard the
Sony-
Guardians
Disney,
game was
this
really
is the
good, but
problem.
that's a low standard. What was that, Jeff?
Disney needs to insource the methods of production. They need to buy a gaming studio, either Epic or EA, and they need to make games. And they should be making great Marvel games. It's the best IP out there. The fact that there's not an amazing Iron Man game, an amazing Thor game, like these are
Yeah.
like the Hulk. Imagine playing a game with the Hulk. It's just
I mean, they
crazy. to me
do
that
have
this
a
isn't
game.
cool.
It's just not very good.
I know they go.
They've tried. They've
That's
tried
the
a bunch of
problem.
times.
Yeah, like the problem is they're not good, but they should be.
Chris says Lord of the Rings Shadow of Mordor sold 4 million units. I take my comments back just a little. There you go. Chris,
Is that like
you're the
Shadow of
best
Mordor,
viewer
yeah.
That's crap.
when you can contradict yourself and give facts to the contrary. I love it.
You know what else sold
Uh,
4 million units?
What?
Grand Theft Auto 5 sold 4 million units in the last 3 months, and that game's been out for 7-8 years. So like, that's mice nuts. That's useless. That's nothing. That's terrible. 4 million units is garbage.
Just juiced all over the
Easy.
conversation.
I don't know if it's
Throw that
mice
away.
nuts, but like,
Throw that away. It doesn't even
Tom's-
cover the licensing cost.
you're right, but you know it's better
And
than
a
selling a
reasonable
million.
profit down the line. You know, you get the licensing cost, the fees to Microsoft. You can't even afford to eat.
No, you're taking the bus. Tom says the reason Disney has been successful with Marvel is because they let Marvel Studios run with it. DC is not as lucky. I mean, DC doesn't. I don't think DC has the breadth of or depth of universe either. But I agree, Disney. Actually, I don't know, Tom. I don't know about this internally. I mean, you may know better than I do, or I don't know if you guys have thoughts on this. But Disney's hand seems to be a definite factor in Marvel's success, right? I think, does everyone agree with that?
I think a lot of the Disney touches on Marvel IP has really weakened the brand for me personally. You know, watching all of the new shows on Disney Plus, a lot of them are a lot weaker than how some of the movies were. And I kind of agree with Tom, but I would just say, Tom, check out Peacekeeper on HBO Max. It is awesome. John Cena is the star, and it's so good. But in general, I kind of agree with that.
JC says, no, I think Adam's on target. And Adam had said Lord of the Rings and Star Wars ahead of Harry Potter, which I agree with. Freddie says, Lord of the Rings is great, but it seems easier to create similar IP without infringing. I mean,
Like fantasy?
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because it's elves and trolls, I guess.
You gotta build a pretty big world and like story building. Like that's, I don't know.
I mean, I get it.
World
Right?
of
You can't just
Warcraft is
knock
sort of
off.
like a good example, right?
It's also just not that hard to create superheroes, right? Like give some guy powers and a suit, right? Like, I mean, you're right. It's not Iron Man, but I feel like I get it. Like intuitively, I don't disagree. Fantasy is a little more generic, if you want to say. But Tolkien's really deep. Arsanity says, just because a movie does great does not mean the game would be great. We have seen the inverse. For example, Assassin's Creed, horrible movie, but good game. The Halo movie too, with the exception of Arcane. I mean, Arsanity, we've covered this so much on this show, on the podcast. Encourage you to go back and watch those episodes. But like, Jeff, thoughts?
I was going to say, did you guys, and maybe this is a transition, did you guys see they're making a BioShock Netflix
Yes.
show or movie?
Super
What do you
excited
think?
for
Do
that.
you think it'll be, what does chat think? Good, bad? And actually, wait, here's a question.
Yeah.
Is this the first step to Netflix buying Take-Two?
No.
I don't think so either.
Well, why not? I to be fair, I don't think so either. We've covered Netflix and gaming many, many times, but like,
I know.
Why would they buy the
ask a
cow when
relate-
they're getting the milk for free? You know what I mean?
And can I ask a
they're
related
not getting
question?
the milk
Yeah.
for free.
What percentage of people who watch the BioShock TV show on Netflix, what percentage of those viewers do you think will have played the game?
Probably the same as the Witcher show.
No,
I think.
that I don't
You know,
agree with.
Why not? Just because
I think a way
ones-
lower percentage. I think BioShock's way more niche.
Mm,
And I know it's a game that has done very well, and it's an IP that has done very well, but I do think the audience is much more niche for BioShock.
So you're saying that there will be more non-players who watch it?
Correct.
I thought you were saying
I'll
less.
buy it.
No, I'm saying
Meaning,
more.
I think the majority of people who watch it on Netflix will be like, "Oh,
Not
this is
ever
cool."
got
Like,
it. Sorry.
Yeah. Looks
you know,
cool.
it's
It's like a, sci-fi.
what do they call it?
fantasy.
Steampunk, like, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is neat or
Mhm.
whatever. But beyond that, they may never know that it's related to a game. In the same way, you could watch the trailer for Uncharted on TV and be like, you could never, if no one told you and you've never played that game, it looks like just an adventure movie, right?
Right.
Chris says the nerd in me just wants Dragonlance. Arsanity says Beast on Lego games were great, other were meh. And Jonah, that it's because that number is not accurate. It doesn't show most of the platforms. JC says it's Marvel and Disney together as a powerhouse. I mean, this is true, right? Lego games. It is Marvel and Disney together as a powerhouse. You put those two together, usually you get good results. I'm actually surprised. It's a whole other rabbit hole, but how good Lego games perform. Lego is another piece of IP that is remarkably popular, despite I would call pretty shallow universe, right? Like it's blocks. Arsanity says, I'm talking directly about gaming for my list with my previous reasons above. Yeah, Arsanity, I think we assumed your list was gaming only, and I think we all agree with it. Chris says the FGC would like to have words with you. Marvel versus Capcom 2 forever. Lord of the Rings is my high. Star Wars is my low. Chris, I hate FGC games because I'm bad at them. Kevin says, would the new Harry Potter game have a significant impact on value given the success of its movies and spin-offs?
Yeah. I mean, I think it certainly would. Anytime you can extend the brand into more media, more mediums.
I
I
just
mean,
haven't
other than
really
the fact that the
seen-
only Harry Potter game we've seen recently was a big flop, right?
That's what I was saying. I haven't really seen any success with other applications of the Harry Potter IP,
I don't think
apart
it's
from
like
the books and the movies.
yeah.
Go for it.
I don't think that they've done a great job with any of them because the Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal is awesome. And somehow they're just, I don't know, it's like whoever has tried to translate that has not done a great job to me.
I mean, I also think there's demographics that play into the value of this IP, right? Like, I think if you look at the range of demographics it appeals to, my feeling is Harry Potter's more limited than a Star Wars or a Lord of the Rings, or most definitely a Marvel. And maybe some of the reasons of Marvel's success is just the range of demographics that it appeals to is probably the biggest of all of them, right? You've got sort of something for everyone.
I kind of think, and I like Tom's argument earlier, and this gives more credit to. I know I was super critical of the Bungie Sony acquisition the a week or two ago, but it gives a lot. I think there's a lot to be said also with the teams that are launching these visions, right? Tom kind of saying that's why Marvel's successful for Disney because they're letting Marvel run with it. Us talking about Sony building in what was it 1.2 billion to keep the team around Bungie. I get what you're talking about in terms of being appealing to a wider variety of people, but execution, I would argue, is just as important because we could see. I would argue that DC and Marvel cater to arguably the same overlapping demographic, and Marvel is blowing DC out of the water with execution.
Beast Mode says, I just can't see Harry Potter making a game. Well, they did. Niantic did. And then they just shut it down recently. Tom says
there's
that's
another
the guys
Harry Potter game coming soon, right? It's Harry Potter Spellbreak or something. I don't know who's making it.
I'm not sure. Our Sanity says, isn't there a Harry Potter MMO coming out?
Oh yeah, I thought that too.
I don't know how you make an MMO. Well, maybe you could. I mean, maybe you could.
I'm gonna go to school and choose a house. I'm gonna play Quidditch and all that good stuff.
Adam says, I'm all for video games being made into shows and movies, honestly. This is why they're making them, Adam. No question. Antonio says, BioShock, thumbs up. There are definitely fans of BioShock. I'm trying to catch up on previous podcasts. There are just so many. Our Sanity said, yes, like 250 episodes at least, probably closer to 300 now.
Yeah, our Sanity, I'll make it easy for you. Just skip the ones that I'm not a part of. And you'll catch up so much faster.
That's it. It's so much faster. Chris says BioShock can be a Criterion level of film with the themes of that title. So yeah, lower than Witcher. But I think, again, the fans of Criterion films are like a niche audience, right? It's more niche. Even though we may agree it makes for a better movie. Because I agree, Witcher is like short stories, right? Like really light on content, but makes for a pretty mass market appeal. JC says Marvel is executing better. Yes, I agree with that. I think Jimmy made a good point there. Freddie says, don't forget about the importance of E10 and T as you have this discussion. Oh, I'm biased. So like teenagers and kids, basically. I'm biased, but kids are going to become more and more important when it comes to games and IP in general. I mean, Freddie, that's, and I'm curious what you guys think, but that's the comment I made, right? Like, the what is the range of audiences that these IP appeal to from a games perspective? It feels like some are better suited to capture from kids to adults rather than a more narrow version of slice of that spectrum. Our Sanity says, I'd have to disagree with Jimmy. Don't Marvel and DC share the same demographics? Marvel, like Prophet said, is wide. DC is more grim and gritty superhero films, mature audience. I mean, obviously, I agree with that.
Okay,
Jimmy.
I think that's a result of execution. They're telling dark Batman stories, not a lot. I mean, the Wonder Woman stories aren't dark and gritty.
To be fair, when they tried telling colorful Batman stories, those didn't go over so well. Although there's a soft spot in my heart for Mr. Freeze somewhere.
Shazam also is DC. That wasn't super dark, and we'll see how Black Adam does. I'm interested because that could be the saving grace. I thought Aquaman was a missed opportunity, though.
Michael says, hello, everyone. Doesn't Netflix Gaming have a Stranger Things game? I think it's
They
more
do.
just like a mobile, right? Like casual.
Just like pair with the show kind of thing.
Yeah. JC says yes, and obviously agrees. All right, guys. We have to move on. We have like there goes my plan for the show, which I love. Like, to me, this is the absolute best when the original plan goes off the rails and we just get into an hour-long discussion here. I do want to say very quickly, this podcast, this live stream, very generously sponsored by YouGov. They provide the best data on gamers, games, esports fans around the world. If you're looking to tap into that gaming audience, you're a brand, you're a team, you're a marketing person, whatever you're operating and looking at the gaming space, definitely reach out to YouGov because they provide very actionable data. Go to yougov.com/gaming-esports. There's a bunch of free reports there. I'll put it in the chat, yougov.com/gaming-esports. But if you want to get in touch with them, just reach out to me or to Jimmy or to the Juice or to Lindsay. directly, and we can connect you with the folks at YouGov. They're very generous with their time. Freddie says this was fun. Thanks all. Freddie, we're not done. We got so much more show. Arsanity says show can last longer. What do you mean? The conversations today were great. Arsanity, I'm doing a little ad break because someone has to pay for all this, and then I have more stuff to talk about, guys. Can I do a fun story to break things up just a little bit, though? Will you?
Yeah, that last story was not
Wait,
fun.
can we
I did
also
not
end
enjoy
with a
that.
lightning round because we're getting
Lightning round would be good.
Okay,
Yeah.
Can we? Okay, you want
Start
to do
with
a
the fun
lightning
one.
round?
Start with the
Lightning
fun
round, lightning round, lightning round, lightning round.
Okay, we'll do a lightning round. Okay, even though we never stick to. Actually, I don't want to do a lightning round. I want to do the fun story first.
All
And
right,
this
fun
is
story, then lightning round.
we are notorious on this live stream for our chair reviews. I did have a chair review this week, just to be clear. Okay. If you give me a second here, I had it. And I when I looked at the chair, oh yeah, here it is. So the chair review I was going to do was Attack on Titan Secret Lab gaming chair announcement. And then I'm like, that's not that interesting as a chair review, right? Because we're a hard-hitting chair review program. And so instead I found another piece of gaming hardware, gaming peripheral, which blew my mind. I think this is the most genius thing ever. I'm not going to lie. And so the headline here is, this Japanese gaming peripheral holds your head up so you don't have to. And the sub-headline is, when holding your head up is too much trouble, there's this. And so I don't need to explain it. You can see it here, whether you're lying on your front or on your side or on your back. It holds your head up so you can play your game, you can eat. And, it does all of this seamlessly, maybe the most genius gaming peripheral or device I've ever seen. Thoughts, comments? Everyone's buying one. Yes.
I am obsessed with this. Can you go up to that one picture? Scroll up. Okay, stop. Look at how happy her face is in that thing.
This is true.
I mean, the only thing I think of, this is the thing you put your face in when you get a massage. And I'm thinking
like
this has major applications. Imagine you can get a massage and you can be gaming while you're getting a massage. I mean,
I agree.
I think we're in.
And it's portable. I feel like you could take this places, right? You go to someone's house, you don't want to have to deal with them. You plop this down, you get lost in your game.
I'm thinking about bringing this on a plane. Imagine this on a plane. I'm always so uncomfortable on
you could,
planes.
lean forward.
Oh, it's amazing. This is $1 billion idea.
I love this thing.
My neck hurts just looking at it. Like I need something to take.
That's why you need it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It does all these years we've been doing all the hard work of holding up our own heads like chumps.
Crappy donut pillows. Oh my god, this is so much better.
JC says, first timer on the show. This is great. Love it. JC, I know you're here for the hard-hitting gamer peripheral reviews. Arsanity says, same, so much better than watching vodcasts. Arsanity and JC, we love having you guys live. This was awesome. Beast Mode said that it's dope. I would buy that. Freddie says, game changer. This is great. Japan always got the wildest yet best inventions. We will all be the chubby chunkers in Wall-E before you know it, says Chris.
No, Chris. Maybe all of us just won't have such tense shoulders.
I love it. I think the world needs more of this. All right, guys. Do we want to do lightning round?
Lightning.
Yes,
do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Lightning round. So you got to keep it short, like a few sentences, okay? And let me just read Michael's comment. How do you use this on the move, Uber, ride, or train? I mean, Michael, I'm sure there will be a version of this which, will allow us to not have to hold our heads up in those situations. Okay. Lightning round. I just want your quick thoughts, okay? Quick thoughts on all of these. We're going to go Jimmy, Lindsay, Jeff, and then on the next one in reverse order, Jeff, Lindsay, Jimmy, okay? This is how it's going to go. All right. First story. Valorant might be coming to consoles. I'm not going to say any more than that. Jimmy?
Fantastic. I have been wanting to play Valorant with my squad, but some of us do not game on PC for whatever ungodly reason. So hopefully this will get our group back into it because I had a lot of fun when I played Valorant. I'm all for this.
Lindsay?
I think that providing better access to games is usually the right move. I don't know that this will be like a super huge smash success, but I also never think that adding more users or allowing the ability for more users to come on is a bad idea.
Jeff?
This combined
Disagree
with
with both of them.
I mean, this combined with aim assist is going to be amazing for Paul's mental health. So I'm excited for that.
Can't wait for Valorant Mobile next.
This is just this is the worst piece of news this whole week. This is my view. And I'm just, it's like Riot backtracking. They said we're PC first. We care about competitive
PC game out
integrity
first. On the console game.
Here's what's happening.
The definition of PC first.
Player base is going down. They need a lifeline. I have a funny feeling they think console is it. Beast Mode, not sure about this. Freddy thinks it's great. Our Sanity says Valorant on console. Nope, for me, CS:GO isn't on console for a reason. Our Sanity, you're my favorite. Freddy says amen, and Beast Mode says yeah. Val on Xbox, is that the move? I hope not, Beast Mode. I really hope not for your sake, Jimmy's sake, and the sake of gaming everywhere. All right, guys, let's next story here. Thoughts on this one? Quick thoughts. Activision-Blizzard's Brandon Snow leaving his company's esports head. He's going to leave the company at the end of the month to pursue a new opportunity. He had oversight of Overwatch League and Call of Duty League after Joanna Ferries, who used to be doing that, started focusing exclusively on development of the next Call of Duty game. What do you make of him jumping ship, even though the Microsoft Activision-Blizzard deal technically hasn't closed?
Well, Brandon Snow is a Rockstar executive. I mean, I'm curious to see where he lands because people don't generally leave great jobs without something really exciting that they're going to do. So I'm curious to see the follow-up where he ends up. I'm sure it'll be someplace great. But this is the risk for Activision Blizzard right now during this, and the risk for Microsoft during this period before the deal closes. You're going to see a ton of talent leave the building for better opportunities. So this is probably the first of many stories we'll see like this.
Lindsay, is it telegraphing that no more Activision Blizzard esports?
I had a different take that Overwatch League and Call of Duty League haven't been doing great. So I'm not surprised that he is taking the opportunity to go elsewhere.
Just good timing.
Yeah. Why not jump ship now? And to be honest, I mean, we don't know what happened. It could be a very amicable split for sure, but it might be that Activision, Blizzard, and Microsoft are also kind of looking to bring in something new and different to try to oversee these leagues. It's not a knock on him as an executive at all to just need something different maybe to help those leagues. They're clearly struggling.
Jimmy?
I don't know what could be better than trying to take the reins of this project with Microsoft's leadership and ownership. So, I mean, not really wowed by what Overwatch League has been able to do or hold on to over the past couple of years. Also, not really wowed by COD League either, honestly. Been to a handful of live events and keep playing the game, but, I'm just not impressed. And I'm not blaming this on him. I'm just saying you have a real opportunity now with new leadership and like a fresh start. And it's kind of like a challenge that he's choosing not to take. Not knocking him for that. I would like to end on a high note personally, and I don't think that these projects, if these are things that he's worked on and grown over however long, are ones that I personally would feel like I left in a good state. I would rather have, left it better than I found it.
Yeah, I definitely think he might be telegraphing something here. Maybe it's Microsoft wanting to put their own stamp on these things at some point, big changes, shutdown. Like, I think there's big changes coming one way or the other, and I think this is sort of the canary in the coal mine, but maybe not that dire, right? I don't know if it means the leagues are going away, but I think they may be substantially different. Our Sanity says TFT on console, though, great idea. Freddie says replacing Jimmy on the podcast. I mean, Freddie, no one can replace Jimmy on the podcast.
Hey.
I mean, that would be a step up from running, Overwatch and Call of Duty League, but
it's true.
There's only 4 spots on this panel, and I don't know if Brandon can cut it.
It takes time. It does take time.
It
It's not
does.
that it looks easy. It looks easy, but it's not. Michael says Valorant to consoles a no. I thought Valorant was coming to mobile next. They have been recruiting for that development. Michael, I knew you remembered. They did say this was not going to happen. Like I remember distinctly them saying this wasn't happening next. And if they're backtracking, something has changed. Our Sanity says I agree with Lindsay. Everyone always agrees with Lindsay. I think it's unfair. Can we disagree with Lindsay? Beast Mode says, who would want to replace Jimmy? He's so cute. Jimmy's mom? Is that you? All right.
Yes, Paul, her username is Beast Mode.
This story was puzzling to me, but I'm bringing it up for a reason. It may be fun to comment on. The headline here: Noble Esports deletes Twitter account after employees claim they are owed wages. Contractors, employees, and even T-Pain have been named as alleged unpaid members of the org. What I thought was interesting was that it said here, hold on, I got to find the exact quote. He says, with all due respect, this is the Noble's partnership manager who quit and shut down, I guess, the Twitter account or whatever. He says, with all due respect, you were warned, advised, and simply were uncomfortable to work with, Goodman said, of the CEO, of the Noble's owner. He says, Goodman also claimed McDougal, who is the owner, got Noble's money wrapped up in NFTs and has failed to pay employees.
Oh, God.
Are we seeing...
I mean, I feel a little uncomfortable joking about this because obviously people aren't getting paid and getting fired, but it does feel as if someone took like one of those machine word processors and just spit out like the perfect esports org story right now. Like you've got T-Pain, so like random has-been celebrity. You've got NFTs, you've got mismanagement, and unfortunately you have people getting sort of hurt by that. And it's funny, I guess, for us to joke about some of the aspects, but clearly these are real people that are getting screwed and not getting paid. So that is unfortunate. Hopefully all of them find great jobs in the industry. It's a growing industry, so I'm sure they will, but yeah.
Lindsay?
Yeah, this is just sad. And I disagree with T-Pain being a has-been. The man just won The Masked Singer, proving his talent once and for all. So
okay. I'm sorry I don't watch The Masked Singer, so I apologize. Is he using his auto-tune?
These things. That's what Twitter is for. Anyways, no, I think this is really sad. And I think it's so unfortunate that, of course, NFTs like get wrapped up in this. And there's such a current wave of hatred towards them, and as someone who is really intrigued by the idea, I just hate that this is one of the other things that's getting thrown out there. This comes down to one of the themes that we always talk about in the show, and that's that good management makes a company. And it's really unfortunate that people got hurt and that someone felt comfortable squirreling away all of their money like this and not paying the people that they're supposed to pay.
Jimmy?
Hard to add much more to Jeff's sentiment, to both sentiments, honestly, that it's really just kind of unfortunate. Honestly, when I look at the story and I try and detach myself from the people for it, just for the purposes of being somewhat objective, I guess, and no disrespect intended there, it's just kind of hard to believe, right? Like you just look at this and you're just like, what a wild situation. How did T-Pain, for example, how did the star not get paid up front? How did they mismanage this with other people that should have checks approving these decisions and knowing where that money's going? Like it just, how did it get so out of control is what's wild to me. So, but also echoing, I think, the two previous comments.
Yeah, and I want to add that not trying to make light of it. It's always very unfortunate that people aren't getting paid, and it is sad, and it shouldn't happen. I think this is why I make sure that we try and call these things out, though, because we don't want it to keep happening. Right? As an industry, this is bad for everybody, not just for the people who got shafted out of dollars. It attacks the credibility of the industry as a whole, and it hurts everybody. And those people should be held responsible in some way. I think to me what stood out was just this wrapping this up in NFTs, and they had some, it seems like a scam token, and like a lot of it just felt like cash grab in the moment, and not actually running a real business. I just think it's incredibly unfortunate, and I also hope the people who didn't get paid land on their feet and are made whole in some way. Trent says maybe the Blizzard esports will be better off. I mean, Trent agreed. It could be good changes coming, not necessarily bad ones. Our Sanity says I disagree with Lindsay.
Hey,
finally,
we had a good thing going. Gonna take your check out of the mail, our Sanity.
Trent says unpaid esports contractors, a times old tale. Trent, unfortunately, a truth here. It's just so odd because, you know, most of these companies are actually relatively well funded. They've raised money, right? Like, if you're going to go out of business, it's not that hard to wrap up and make sure people are paid and, you know, shut things down in a responsible and like ethical manner. It's so weird to me that they leave with this trail of bad news and reputations destroyed and things like that. So Freddie says, thanks, sick kid. All right, guys. Let's go on to the next one. I have this one about Pokimane, which I think we should talk about. I want to get your quick lightning round opinion on this. Pokimane resigns with Twitch and takes a cheeky swipe at Ludwig while doing so. No big money move to YouTube Gaming. So following a bunch of speculation that she was going to be going to YouTube Gaming, Pokimane confirmed she'll be resigning with Twitch, stream exclusively on the platform. She also joked that instead of choosing between a red or purple car, she's giving one away. That's in reference to Ludwig's big money move to YouTube, where he gets out of it. I think he had a red car and Valkyrie had a purple car or something like that, right? There was some joking going on there in terms of cars, and she's giving one away, evidently, a Tesla. But Pokimane staying with Twitch. What do you guys make of that? Jimmy?
No one? Yeah, I think it's smart. Twitch is the place to be. Why would you leave? You have a loyal audience there. It's very hard to build an audience somewhere else. She's got to be making... Well, I think she was also one of the first ones that wasn't all about the money anyway. She does a lot of charitable things. UC Irvine rings a bell with that scholarship fund opportunity. I'm a fan of hers, and I'm a fan of this. I think, you know, why would you leave Twitch at this point? YouTube is not where I want to be.
Was this money or lifestyle? You think she didn't get a big enough offer from YouTube, Lindsay?
I think she probably didn't get an enticing enough offer from YouTube. Not in a bad way, but I think Jimmy's right. I think she likes being on Twitch, and it would take a lot to get her off. So also YouTube seems really sunk in on Valkyrie. So from their perspective,
interesting
they
point.
may not have offered as much as if they were trying to actually fully poach Pokimane.
She still hasn't resigned though, has she?
You don't think? Yeah, she did.
Yeah,
No,
sure.
She did. You don't think there's room for both? That's an interesting point.
There absolutely is, but it just, when you're going after budget, like the top female streamers are so much more niche. And if you have one to try to get the second who's already comfortable on another platform, I think just takes a lot bigger check because there's fewer of them, less supply. Drives the price up.
Jeff?
I really don't have a super hot take here. I guess if you're a streamer and you don't get a bag thrown at you, you want the biggest distribution. So she went for the biggest distribution. Makes sense.
Yeah, but the implication is she didn't get a bag thrown at her. How? She's the biggest female streamer on the planet. Why do we think YouTube didn't throw a bag at her? Or could it be that the person throwing the bags is no longer at YouTube? The person whose bright idea was it to throw big bags?
They ran out of money to spend on creators.
He's now throwing bigger bags of crypto.
Conceivably, she has enough money if she's giving away a Tesla, right?
Yeah.
Like
Tesla?
A Roblox Tesla, yeah.
Arsani says that was taken out of context. I need that check, Lindsay. So there you go. May still need to send it. Arsani says Twitch is a community. It's worth so much. I mean, obviously these streamers perform better on Twitch. That's been conclusive that you're following dips when you go to YouTube. The question is, what is that worth, right? To take a dip. And so far, a number of streamers have felt it worthwhile to take the big payout. Trent says, I thought Pokimane was canceled. Was she? I mean, Pokimane's never canceled. There's always some controversy around Pokimane, but I think that's the nature of being at the very top and also being quite opinionated as she is and quite forward thinking, or at least groundbreaking in terms of what she does and the decisions she makes. But I didn't know she was canceled. I didn't know that. Adam says, I got to go to bed. Great show as always. Adam, thank you for being here. Really great having you. Beast Mode said she was canceled. I didn't. It's news to me. I didn't.
They're
know
like
that.
an official. Like, how do you know when you're canceled? Like,
Yeah.
When do you actually officially get canceled? Is there like a list somewhere? I don't know.
What a great PR pivot to ignore being canceled last week. Resigning contract to sweep the convo under the rug. I mean, you think this was a PR move to sweep a conversation under the rug? She had drama with Gideon, a YouTuber who got banned on Twitch. However, it was mended at Trent Knox. I mean, I feel like these controversies with these streamers, if they're not manufactured, like they exist literally to create more conversation around them and increase their following.
Right. It's like WWE. It's all like WWE. It's all fake.
Exactly. I don't know if it's 100% fake, but it always feels like 80% fake to me. Our Sanity says they're friends now and made a video together with a popular YouTuber named Gideon. So this feels a little, I don't know if it's a real cancellation, but she's staying on Twitch. That's the message. And I think the big question for everybody, or the conversation here, and it doesn't seem conclusive, is did she get a big offer from YouTube and turned it down, or did she just not get a big enough offer? I think is interesting.
We've really moved away from the lightning round here.
Well, it's hard. It's hard because some of this requires discussion. I wasn't planning on doing these as a
lightning
lightning
round.
round.
It's a lightning round. Lightning round.
All right, let's do this one. This one's a quick one. Sony Gaming AI beats Gran Turismo World Champ Racer. And the question I have for you guys on this one, lightning round style, is why is this a headline? Is anyone surprised by this?
No. Next. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the game you can always make the game good enough. It's not like
computer thinks
you
faster.
can always program the game to always win. Like it's a computer program. It's not.
This
like
is what I
chess
didn't
or
understand.
checkers.
Why it's like why is this a headline? Because the game can drive the perfect line, can like make the perfect inputs the exact right time. I don't think this is like the biggest step in AI, but anyways, Trent says Ninja said she was canceled for being racist. Well, I mean, I don't know if Ninja's the one doing the canceling. Our Sanity says, I think the offer has to be way too much to turn down. She's already so rich. Could be that YouTube just doesn't have the appetite for, massive payouts anymore. All right, guys, going to end on one last article here. Sorry, let me get it. Because I think this was an interesting one, and I'm curious what everyone thinks. And that is Garena Free Fire in the news and banned in India. So the Modi government in India banned the Chinese game Garena Free Fire and 54 other Chinese mobile apps. So no one can play Garena Free Fire in India, which was, as far as I understand, one of its most important markets. Is Asia just becoming a tougher and tougher place to do business as a gaming investor? Like, what do you guys conclude from this? Jeff?
I mean, this is some weird geopolitical stuff because it's like Garena is owned by a company C, which is based in Southeast Asia. I think they're based in Singapore.
I think.
So so they happen to be owned, I want to say maybe 15 or something % by Tencent. So it just doesn't make sense. Like, why is that getting your game banned? Free Fire has nothing, there's nothing culturally wrong with it. It's not, like, I just don't see why India will be banning a very normal battle royale shooter game. It's just so bizarre to me. Like, are they going to ban? Tencent owns stakes in Activision-Blizzard. They own stakes in probably 50 other companies. Are these games all going to be banned from India? Like, why are we doing that? Who benefits here?
Do you guys have a good question for the other two, for Lindsay or Jimmy?
I don't know. It's just all crappy games where the global market as a whole loses out. And every time we have one of these stories, it just makes me sad.
I mean, to be fair, it's a hugely popular game.
Huge.
Like, massively popular. And see the parent company, that created this, like the founders have founder has become a billionaire on the back of basically this game, right? Like, I don't know what else they've got in their portfolio, but this is pretty much it, I think.
On the gaming side, I mean, they have a massive
Big story, definitely a big
e-commerce.
story, definitely a big hit, right? This is bigger than Fortnite being banned in China. Way bigger than that story. In terms of the implications, like you said, from what that business will see in terms of its drop in active users and profits and everything. It doesn't make me sad. It makes me kind of like, well, there's a lot of opportunity now for other people to fill that void. But at the same time, if they turn that switch back on, I have a feeling it wouldn't be too hard to start the machine up again. What I like Jeff's kind of thought on what are the underlying politics here that are, because it's so unrelated to anything. Everything that I read coming out of that region recently, as far as anything innovative, gaming, Web3, all of the stuff that we discuss on our programming at Holodeck, is always hands-off, adverse, and kind of just like not into it, right? Like I don't know. It's not where I want to be right now. It's not where I want to be doing business personally. I think the Arab region of the world is really doing it right. They're so bullish and so aggressive in their moves, and they're getting into it quick and early, solidifying their presence in the space. And that's the way to be. That's what we all believe. Like I said, I do believe that if India or China are to turn back on that switch tomorrow, that it wouldn't be too hard to start back up though. So maybe they're just being passive, hesitant, cautious, but there's really no rhyme or reason to this that I could see either, unless there's some kind of political argument going on that's completely unrelated. I agree with that point.
I mean, there clearly are political arguments going on, right? Like there's some India v China here thing, and then with the Tencent, it's often been China versus the West, or right? Like there's geopolitical forces at work here that go beyond gaming. I just, all those things really scare me as an investor, and anyone looking at the space in Asia. It's just like it's full of landmines at this point, and anything that's not homegrown seems to be at risk. Like pile on top of a population that is, relatively poor, in terms of disposable income. It's just doesn't feel like a great market to be trying to spend time and resources on. And Jimmy, to your point, compared to the Middle East that has sort of opened its arms to the West and to, gaming companies from all over the world, welcomed them, invested in them, with tons of disposable income, right? Like you just have an environment there that I'm much more bullish on. And I think it's unfortunate that the Middle East gets much less attention than China and India when it comes to gaming. And 2 years from now, I guarantee you that won't be the case. People are going to catch on to this. Eventually they're going to hear me or you saying it or us saying it enough that they're going to pay attention. So Reputable Hype says there's a big blackboard in the metaverse with the names of people who get canceled on it. That's Reputable Hype. I mean, that's good. Finally, some kind of authority from the metaverse, some kind of record at least we can all refer to. Chris says Knicks blew a 28-point lead while we were all arguing. I blame esports. Chris, it's most definitely.
Is that the Meat Sports affiliate for Knicks Gaming?
The Knicks were doing that way before esports, Chris.
Who are these Knicks?
And do they have a metaverse of some kind? Because if not, they're not relevant. Lindsay, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I just am really sad about the Knicks.
Oh.
The poor Knicks.
I mean, the Nets have a metaverse, so the fact that the Knicks don't,
they have a metaverse. Very clever.
They're way less relevant. Guys, that wraps up this week's show. I know we went a little bit long. You guys were amazing. Chat was amazing. Thank you all for coming. It makes it so much more fun when we get to argue about these things with you guys. Make sure follow us everywhere on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. Join our Discord server. I'll put it in the chat, discord.gg/metatv. You just have to click on that or put that link in your browser and you'll join our Discord server where we talk about a bunch of stuff during the week. It's a lot of fun. We're all in there. We all try and participate during the week. There's a nice community in there now. And don't forget, we do this every Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. The podcast drops this week. Next week, you've got new episodes of Meta Business and Meta Woman. Make sure to subscribe to those podcasts. And thank you all. Tom says, thanks, guys. And Lindsay, always entertaining. Thank you. Our Sanity says, I'll try to join next week. It was super fun. Our Sanity, we're going to absolutely, we need you next week. It was so much fun to have you here. Thank all of you guys. We really had a good time, and we will see you all next week.